This is Mexico's main detention center in Tapachula, the border capital of Mexico's southernmost state lining Guatemala. What you're seeing here are migrants from all over the world who came over that border, thinking the final skids to the American economy were greased to the U.S. southern border. Instead, though, President Donald Trump had the Mexicans erect a wall here of perhaps the most inhumane kind: bureaucracy. They've come to get their original registration documents stamped as required twice every week to prove they're still here and complying with new Mexican requirements. Many have given up and gone home rather than face this slow kind of strangulation. But immigrants like these Central American women say they're going to put up with it through November 2020. Why that date? That's when they think President Donald Trump will lose the American election, and the way to the American economy will once again be open under the Democrats. Make no mistake, the so-called migrant crisis, with its infamous mass caravans, is over. By all accounts, Central Americans are being deported from Mexico, are forced to wait in Mexico, or choosing to stay home and not even try. This is a major Trump policy victory for two main reasons. His credible threat to impose massive tariffs on all Mexican imports forced Mexico to deploy 6,000 National Guard troops to block the roads north. So anyone south of them are effectively trapped behind the line. Secondly, Trump began deporting tens of thousands of Central Americans back into Mexico to await the outcomes of American asylum claims so they can't disappear inside America after they inevitably lose. This made untold tens of thousands of Central Americans Mexico's problem. To induce them to return home and make others choose not to come to Mexico, Mexico gave them all a Hobbesian choice: either be deported or apply for Mexican asylum, a long, torturous, and quite unanticipated wait. The way things worked before was that most migrants arriving over the Guatemala border headed straight for the launching pad of Tapachula City. Most of the action takes place over this river called the Suchiate, not far from where it empties into the Pacific. Once in Mexico, they would take buses, trucks, and planes north to the American border. But no more for most. They now have to register for permission to stay, long enough to apply for Mexican asylum. This alone can take weeks. This Cameroonian explained that Mexican National Guardsmen pulled him and others off a bus north of Tapachula. Mexican immigration put him in a detention center and told him he wouldn't be let out unless he agreed either to be deported or apply for Mexican asylum. Given how much money he spent to be smuggled this far, he chose to register and pursue asylum. Migrants apply for asylum at Mexico's overwhelmed office, the Comar. That office, though, is swamped, and decisions can take at least 4 months and often even longer. Migrants who'd budgeted to reach America soon enough ran out of funds for this bureaucratic wait. Frustration usually gives way to home returns or determination to outlast Donald Trump's electoral defeat. This from a Haitian who has been blocked from advancing north for 2 months.
It's different. What you don't understand is the things is Comar is the organization here to block you. If they give you the residence for 5 years, you can go to America. You already have a guest here. But if they don't give you this, they don't approve you. You got 1 year card.
Comar's chief in Tapachula, Alma Delia Cruz, said the Mexican government isn't intentionally tormenting migrants with bureaucratic wait times. Comar is just swamped.
En lo particular, lo primero que hice fue requerir recursos materiales para poder afrontar la atención. Nosotros tenemos un problema muy grave de recursos. Entonces, batallamos incluso por hojas blancas.
Even though her office added 50 asylum officers to the 30 it had last year and shortened processes, It can't keep up with the onslaught of 44,000 applications the new policies caused in just 2019. That's up from the usual 1,000 or 2,000 a year. Migrants are not allowed to leave the area while they wait for asylum. Thus, the twice-weekly check-ins at the detention center I witnessed. Some 40% of applications are abandoned, Delia Cruz told me, because no migrant ever expected they'd have to wait in Tapachula, facing returns by the National Guard at roadblocks. The presumption is that most went home not wanting to wait around jobs-tight Tapachula, or that maybe some tried to get themselves smuggled past the National Guard. All evidence points to a significant deterrence posed by the National Guard and Mexican immigration officers at roadblocks throughout Chiapas state. The roadblocks are effective, with random searches and roving setups. Mexican immigration has pulled thousands off buses, trucks, minivans, as I witnessed recently, and returned them to Tapachula to apply for asylum or face deportation. I witnessed the troops in action throughout the state, searching vehicles, moving from town to town, and patrolling. At this roadblock, I saw Mexican immigration fish 2 Guatemalans off a minibus. They'll be dropped off on the Guatemalan side of the nearest border crossing in a day or two. On the Pacific coast, the Mexican Navy has made it harder to do an in-run around the inland roadblocks. Migrant-filled vessels do attempt northward passage, but by all accounts in fewer and fewer numbers as the Mexican Navy interdicts them too. This particular river in this small fishing village right on the coast of Chiapas is a place where much of this kind of traffic has happened, according to federal police. What happens typically is that migrants will find a way to get on these boats and then go onto the ocean, which is at the very end of this river right here, and then find their way north around the checkpoints and land on many miles of beach that are just vacant and unpatrolled. What we're told is that in this particular village about 2 months ago, the Mexican Navy established an outpost just on the other side of this river and began patrolling it because they understood what was happening. Just north of here, there was a tragedy where African migrants capsized in their panga boat, just like this, and washed up ashore dead. Again, just a testament to the determination with which migrants are wanting to get to the United States border. About 60% of asylum requests are approved after months of waiting, after which migrants are free to travel anywhere in Mexico. The pressure to return home is intense and gets more difficult by the day. That's because jobs are scarce around Tapachula, and so is money, either to live on or to return home, especially for migrants from other continents, like the 60 Yemenis applied for asylum last year. Dilapidated hotels are filled to capacity with the waiting masses. Others sleep on the street. For those able to endure long enough to get their asylum status, there's a plan. One is to get to other Mexican cities where they can find work until Trump is no longer in office. Many told me they'll stay in Mexico but never stop looking for an eventual break to the U.S. border defense. The United Nations has started helping out by busing migrants to northern cities, about 5,000 of them so far, to cities where there is work, according to the UN's Pierre-Marc René in Tapachula. Whether the floodwaters are held back all depends on whether Mexico stays the course, especially if its troops are ever returned to the barracks. In this area, there are many, many hotels, flop houses, people staying in the streets, migrants from all over the world, people from Africa, Haiti, Iran, Somalia, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Pakistan. They're all right here, and often they spend the evening in this park walking around, waiting around, trying to figure out a way to proceed north. At this point, they can't really proceed north. They're here, many of them have been here for months, and they'll probably stay here for many more months. But ultimately what they're waiting for is a break in Donald Trump's defenses. And the second that there's a weakening of those defenses, they tell me they're going north. I'm Todd Bensman with the Center for Immigration Studies.